All right, everybody, welcome back. Today we are talking about entrepreneurship, business ownership, whatever you want to call it, and all the side effects that come with it. It's something that's very glorified these days. You look on social media at everyone, flaunting their expensive rental car they might have or be flashing off and the trips they're taking. But business ownership, and a lot of people think, oh, it's cool, you make your own schedule and you have employees doing all these things for you. But there's a lot of stress, health effects, relationship struggles, and just general struggles that people like myself that own businesses deal with on a day-to-day basis that aren't really talked about. And so I'm bringing back, again, for the third time now, Lauren DiCredico, who is a psychologist, correct? Psychologist? Yes.
You can use that term, that's fine.
Yeah. She's a psychologist or sports psychologist as well, as she is also my business coach, where we've delved in over the past year or so into not just psychology for myself or therapy, but we've gotten way past that of how does my personal life affect my business and what are the pieces to communication I might be missing, and psychological and physiological burnout and all these different things that we as entrepreneurs kind of face a lot of times silently. So we want to talk about them today. So if you own a business or thinking about owning a business, you should definitely listen in on this one. Or if you are even the partner of someone that owns or runs a business, this could be a big one for you, because that's something I want to talk about, is what a partner should do or expect or understand of their business owner partner. So, Lauren, thank you for coming on. And what are the big things you see on the day-to-day basis, the most common things that business owners are struggling with?
Getting in their own head. In pop culture, it's called mindset, but they're overthinking. They have, they're wearing every hat. They're trying to solve every problem. And so it really comes down to how are they getting in their own way? A lot of the stuff that you mentioned is, of course, factors. But what's their biggest roadblock to even getting to solve those problems is themselves, right? They're just overthinking. They're trying to oversolve, almost like they're trying to come up with all these specific things that they need to do. And it's like, you just need to pull back and reprioritize and then problem solve from there. So yeah, overthinking leads to burnout, right? There's a million things I see. So yeah, we can really dive into, well, what starts all that?
Yeah. And a big thing we've talked about a lot before is you disagree with traditional therapy. I think it has its place, but why do you disagree with the general premise of it?
Yeah, and so I also agree it has its place, and I have my own therapist, and there are parts of it that are great, and certain, just like everything, there's different specialties, etc. But for what's called counseling psychology, which is generally well people who have, they're high functioning, but life happens, right? Things get in the way. At some point, once you're beyond processing like severe trauma or, things, the sitting with your feelings, the waiting to come to your own conclusions, the process of like not being able to really give advice, which is theoretically what they're supposed to do, is not as efficient. And I work with high performers, and so it's more important that I mention I disagree with the traditional therapy model for high performers, because they tend to do better with coaching. They might still need a specific type of trauma therapist or different therapy that they can process some deep stuff. But for the most part, they need someone who can help them uncover maybe why they do stuff and then move on and be like, okay, cool. Now we understand that your parents said this, and so that's why you maybe do this. And, I'm sorry that happened. Validate, right? And then now what, right? These people are problem solvers. And so a lot of therapists are not trained, or it's, unethical for them to really give advice or help them solve problems. Never mind the healthcare and that, every time you go to a therapist that you bill insurance, you are getting a diagnosis. Fun fact, they have to put a diagnosis. So now on your medical records, you have depression, you have, even if you're just going in for general life stress. And so I just don't really agree with that. That's a whole different thing.
When I went to a traditional therapist, she was great. And it was a lot of help from my past and everything that I had never really dealt with. But as someone, I would consider myself a high performer. We had talked about, she wasn't sure if she took my health insurance or whatever. And then we found out she didn't take my health insurance. And after our first couple of visits, she's like, it's really good we're not using your insurance or we can't use your insurance, she's like, I don't have a diagnosis for you. Like, you don't fit anything. You just have a lot of shit you haven't dealt with, but like, you're very good at dealing with most things. So you don't have the anxiety, you don't have depression. Like, I don't want to label you with any of these things. So
I'm glad that she admitted that, because a lot of people, one, it's almost like anything, like you drink the Kool-Aid and you get so bought into it. Whereas I see it as, everything in psychology is on a spectrum. So everybody experiences anxiety. It's a human emotion designed to help us survive. So everybody's going to experience the emotion of anxiety at times. When it becomes a diagnosis is when it truly interferes with your functioning. So being stressed out all the time, but still performing, it's a gray area. Is that really a diagnosis? But that's what they're going to put, right? Versus, okay, we just need to get you some tools so that it doesn't have to be so hard, or you can kind of like self-regulate, because that anxiety has, in high performers like yourself, like all the people I work with, it has driven them, right? That anxiety is why they're a high performer, so they think. But the reality is those symptoms of, anxiety have really just driven them to work harder and solve problems faster. So it's that makes them a high performer, and they are so tied to that anxiety. Like, that's why I have it. I can't get rid of it. And it's like, oh, but you're still going to be a hard worker. You can just do it with less pressure on yourself.
Mm-hmm. And so what are the big differences that you would consider, like, coaching versus therapy, and like the tools you would prescribe someone, I guess?
There's a lot of overlap, sometimes I say, like, this is a hard gray area, and I struggle even on myself at times, like, which skills am I using? I think coaching is more about helping people come to conclusions, but allowing to give advice and give perspective. I think therapy is you're really just asking questions and helping them figure out, and they're figuring out the answers on their own. Both involve giving homework to some degree. I think less therapists prescribe things like, cognitive homework. I think medication's an easy thing to send out, right? We're in that world. I think even in your world, it's the same. And there's a place for that too, and I don't disagree with that either. But I think coaches are more likely to give homework, and I give some therapeutic homework. I also give some business homework. Sometimes people are doing exercises to work through their marketing and messaging. Sometimes they're working through, leadership, communication, right? Sometimes they're working through systems and operations, and they're watching trainings on that. So I give homework, I give advice, but I also do a lot of question asking and a lot of seeking to understand. And really the way that I separate myself is those therapeutic skills that I learned are, psychology is about, you have to come up with a theoretical orientation throughout your grad school. And basically that's, of all the theories out there, all the ways that psychologists in the past have determined how people's problems develop, you have to decide which one do you subscribe to the most, right? It's like your paradigm. And the way that I think about coaching is I just have therapy as part of my paradigm. I use those skills, and I think people's business problems, I just have a way that I think people's business problems develop or personal problems develop. And so I think of it in the same way, and I use those skills to ask deeper questions, get to the root cause of a problem, because a lot of people come in with symptoms, just like yourself in physical therapy. People come in going, my employees don't listen to me, and I can't get them motivated. And it's like, oh, okay, so yeah, it's obviously an employee problem. Whoa, let's pull back. That's a leadership problem. That's a you problem. But we have to figure out, is it that or is it something else? And my therapeutic skills allow me to ask the questions, and I'm also trained to hear what they're really saying. A lot of coaches don't understand that. They look for the words that are said and they take that. I'm trained to really read the whole person and understand where they're really talking about, or understand the pain behind what they're saying.
And with that being said, why
don't think too hard.
Why is it that most of us come in thinking we have one problem, and that's never actually the problem?
Because that's human nature. It's impossible to have an objective perspective, right? So I think that's one component. I think the other component is that you can't know everything, right? Everyone goes to graduate school, and a lot of the people I work with anyways, or they're an expert in their field. You can't be an expert in everything else. Whereas I'm trained, psychology is literally the study of human behavior. So I'm trained to figure out, like, okay, well, what behaviors are causing these problems? Whereas they're just looking at the results. So they're often looking in the wrong place. Like, I talk a lot of KPIs, but we don't focus on KPIs. KPIs tell us where to look, But if we just focus on the KPI, we're just stopping the bleed. What I do is I take that and I go, okay, let's dig deeper. The KPI is the easy solution. Of course, that's where you're going to look. That's what everyone can see. Can you go below the surface? Can you figure out what behaviors are driving that? What mindset things are driving that? And that's where I separate myself, is I just go, if you just tell me what's wrong, I can give you a quick solution. But that's one problem. And you could tell me 6 or 7 things that all have the same theme. And if you just solve each one of those on their own, it's a good coaching business model because you'll have them forever. But the reality is these people want lasting change. And so it's hard to see that. You need someone else to one, dig in and help you, because nobody can see it clearly themselves. And secondarily, just the fact that, you need an objective perspective, and you need someone who's trained to do that, and you need the time to dive in and do that.
And with that being said, how do people's personal problems bleed into business problems?
You want to talk about relationships, right? Like, if you have a partner or you have friendships or in your family, whatever your key problem is in your personal life or with them, it's probably the same problem in your business. So oftentimes that's communication. You know this, I'm big on communication. I think we're not taught proper communication at all. It's something I hope to see in the future in school systems, things like that. But in the meantime, that's kind of a lot of what I'm fixing. And so I think that a lot of people will, I avoid conversations at home and I avoid them at work. Or when I do have conversations, I am, super direct and I'm unempathetic, and I do the same thing at work. Sometimes it's the opposite. And that's a whole different thing we could dive into, but it's really the same. And then never mind the fact that when you start your own business, especially early on, and especially in those first few years, like, you are your business. So in order to try to separate them and coach them differently, you're really trying to pull one person into two. And the reality is, the things going on in your business affect your life. The things going on in your life affect your business.
Yeah, pretty simple put there. And then, with that being said, like, where do you see the biggest area that problems exist within a business? Is it someone's, like you said, thought process, or just overthinking things? Is it their relationships they have with their employees, or their communication? Is it setting expectations for themselves or others?
All of the above. Yes, and.
Okay. And so let's talk about burnout, because I think how many business owners really, like, I think we all at some point hit some line of burnout, right?
Yeah, I don't think I've had someone who hasn't.
Yeah. Can you just describe what burnout really is? Because there's a difference too, because we have psychological and we have physiological burnout too, correct?
I think they are, I would say, my opinion is that you can have two different causes. Mm-hmm. So you can have psychological, physiological, but they're going to look very similar. Mm-hmm. Even if you were to go and get blood work done with physiological or like emotional stress, burnout, it's really what we're talking about here, the same markers on your body are going to show up. There might be some that are different that you could definitely tie into about certain deficiencies because you're overtraining or something. But when you look at emotional burnout or psychological burnout, it's going to have the same effect on your body. That's why you feel exhausted. That's why the symptoms are the same.
And so what are some of the symptoms of burnout?
And this is where that diagnosis comes into play of, like, it's really symptoms of depression. It's sadness. It's, not wanting to, it's not motivate. It's being, lacking motivation. And the difference is these people still do the things. They just feel differently about it. And so it's hard to pinpoint sometimes for these overachievers, these high performers, because they're like, well, I'm still getting stuff done. I just don't want to anymore. I just feel crappy about it. I'm not motivated. I'm not enjoying it anymore. Lack of enjoying of things you used to do. It's not prioritizing yourself and your health. It's not, usually it's being short. It's being, high strung. All these things. The list goes on and how it shows up for people is different, but, it really looks the same.
Are there actual, You mentioned like blood work. Are there actual things you would see pop up on blood work that would be like off that you know of?
I would say I'm not an expert on that, but it's the same. You're going to see high cortisol. You're going to see like the same thing that you would see if someone's under like severe physiological stress, barring any like, health disorders, things like that. But whatever the markers are for, physiological burnout, you're going to see very similar results. You asked about, what's the difference? Like really high stress. What does high stress do to your body? Your body only has one response to stress, and that's designed physiologically to save your life. The problem is in today's world, our body hasn't caught up, evolution has not caught up to today's world. And so when I perceive like, oh my God, I have a deadline approaching, my body still reacts like I'm about to be attacked by a lion. And that's not the case. And the problem is we have a lot more deadlines than lions attacking us. So now we're under, that physiological stress all of the time when it's designed to be used intermittently to save your life. And so that's kind of where it plays and has that effect. And you think about the emotions of that, the adrenaline rush, right? People are just living in that state of adrenaline rush. And what does that do? Eventually you have to crash.
Are there things we can do? I was thinking this yesterday, actually. I had a super hectic, busy day that felt like a gun was to my head all day for 9 different things. But is there something we can do, some daily practice, some mindfulness or something to... Because yesterday I was like in the middle of 9 different things, and I had to take a second to be like, I'm not dying. Like, everything's going to be fine. Slow down for a second. You just get all revved up. But is there something like people can do or mindsets we can have about some of these things that are going to prevent that like cortisol and adrenaline spike?
Yeah, and this is where I like that what therapy teaches you is that everybody's different. And so I have a toolkit, as big as the ocean. But not all those tools are going to work for everyone. And some of them, you might try and be like, oh, I just don't like it. But over time, it does work for you. So a blanket statement would be just developing awareness. So listening to this, listening to more things about this, and then starting to recognize when you're feeling it. And I like a thought interrupter. So asking yourself a question like, is this a life or death scenario? Mm-hmm. Or is this really as stressful as I'm making it out to be? Or, are my thoughts helping or harming me right now? Is my emotion helping or harming me right now? You don't even have to answer the question, because the question is enough to be like, certainly not helping, right? So sometimes that can just be a good, trigger to use throughout your day to be like, okay, let's just pause, to develop that awareness. As far as tools and stuff, sure, some people like mindfulness. Mindfulness meditation is certainly widely researched and used. And people, we had talked about before, some people think like, oh, I'm just not good at it. Like all of these things are skills. But for some people, even when they get in and do it and they get used to it, the benefits might be really small for them. In that case, of course, there's things like working out, right? Taking care of yourself that reduce all of those things and get you kind of back to baseline. Strong relationships, like personal relationships, is actually one of the leading factors to health and happiness. And loneliness is actually one of the biggest things that causes death and stress and all those things. So surrounding yourself with people, even if you're an introvert, you need to have meaningful connection in some way every day, if to a small degree, if possible. So those are kind of some things that you can put into place, but man, the list goes on. It depends who they are and what they like, and I can give them a tool based on what they're looking for.
And so would you say, would you say meditation isn't for everyone, or there's better tools for certain people?
I would say there's better tools for certain people. I wouldn't say it's not for everyone. I think everyone can benefit from it. Everyone can try it. But, it's just like, with what you do, you have to meet the client where they're at. This is, again, something that, graduate school taught me versus, just those coaches out there that are like, oh, I'm going to coach you because I did it myself. That's great. So one way to do it. Okay. Mm-hmm. But you don't know all the different ways people function. And so when I think about that, it's like, if someone's just like resistant to it and, I can read that they're just like, they don't even believe in it, making them try it is not where I'm going to start. Because they're just going to be like, this lady's quack. I'm going to start with something a little more practical in line with them. I'm going to be like, okay, every time before you go into the house, before you unlock that door, open that garage, whatever that is, you're going to pause and you're going to tell yourself something you're grateful for. Mm-hmm. Okay? That's still mindfulness. What it's doing is it's getting you out of future focused or past focused thinking. So it's still mindfulness, and gratefulness is actually the biggest antidote to depression. But you have to really like hone it. You can't just be like, I'm grateful for this. Like it has to mean something. It has to pass what's called the gut check. Like, do you buy into that, or are you just saying it? So those are some other ways that I would do it, is be like, let's meet them with something practical rather than something that they see as like, fluffy.
Yeah. And then as far as the burnout goes, what are some of the signs that the check engine light is about to come on and we need some fixing?
So this is one that I often, this is what I'll work with people on because it looks different for everyone. And I use my own example to sort of resonate with people is, the next time, think back to the last time you experienced burnout. You're not going to be able to do it retroactively as easily, but this is how I'm going to walk you through it. Is the last time you experienced burnout, what preceded the burnout? What preceded it? Like, what were the first things that you were doing that showed you were off? You were off your game. You were just feeling not yourself. For some people, it's like letting go of the gym. It's, maybe being snappy, maybe like isolating, not spending time with friends. And don't get me wrong, we'll talk about there's periods to focus and, not have balance, but, unintentionally having these times. And for me, I notice it's the behaviors you notice that are like unlike you. So at the time, I'm living by myself in my apartment and I'm organized, clean freak, I'm a recovering perfectionist also. That's why I help them. And if the dishes started to pile up in the sink, like I have a dishwasher, they just had to just move, but I'd be like in a rush. Okay, drop this, drop that. As the dishes started to pile up, it took me a while to figure that out. Then what was going to happen if I didn't take care of not just the dishes, but myself and pull back in some way was going to be a disaster. So I started to notice when I start seeing, not just like my coffee mug in the morning, like I'll do that. When I start to see breakfast, lunch, and dinner dishes not making it to the dishwasher, that's a red flag. You have to pull back, Lauren. This is going to get bad, and finding ways to, I've worked on my own different coping mechanisms or things to do or what have you. And sometimes time does not allow it, right? Like, for me personally, I was adjunct teaching and, there was nothing I could do within my systems. Now that that's done, immediately go back to my systems, right? So for other people, what I would encourage you to do moving forward, if you can't think backwards, because it's hard to be like, well, what happened before that? Because you were in such a state of stress, is I would encourage you to the next time you're starting to feel these things, you're feeling just demotivated. And I'm talking more than a day. Like not one day, you have like 2-3 days in a row that you're just feeling off. Oh, I'm not motivated. I'm high stressed. I'm overwhelmed. Maybe I'm sad. Maybe I just don't want to deal with people, or I'm, short fused. Any of those things, start to pay attention to a habit that changes. What's something you normally do that you don't do? And then instead of having to focus on your feelings, because who wants to do that? You can focus on the tangible thing to be your red flag. Okay, or really your orange flag. If you now know you have your orange flag is, ooh, when I see this, that means I'm feeling this, rather than, oh, I have to be aware of how I feel. That's harder to do. So if you have something tangible that you can look for, hey, if I don't pick this orange flag up and do something with it, it's going to turn red real quick. So that's how I would encourage people to go look and figure out what's their telltale sign. And
do most people... I feel like most people don't know they're burnt out until it's too far gone, right?
Usually.
And so how, I think that's the hardest part, is like recovering from it. How does one best recover from burnout?
It depends what causes it, for sure. But some of the main things are, a lot of these people that I work with, people like you and I say, the joke is when you tell them to rest, where's the rest muscle and how do I flex it? They don't understand rest, or they can't sit still. So it's building that tolerance to sit still. It's starting with, 1 minute of relaxing versus 30 minutes versus an hour. It's pulling back. What I would do, let's talk about it from a strategy perspective. I'd take a look at them and go like, let's pull back, and what are the need to do's? Like, what are your glass balls that you can't drop? Okay. That's the only thing we're going to focus on. Okay, what are the next level? What are the tennis balls that can be dropped because they'll bounce back, right? So glass balls are things like your family, your relationships. Maybe you can set boundaries with them, right? But you can't just let them all go, right? That's just not going to work, right? Glass balls are maybe like certain parts of your business. Like you can't stop giving good client service. You can't stop lead generation. You can't stop some of these basics, but, if you're not having a lead flow problem, can you skip a workshop? Can you skip a marketing event for now? Can you take a break from that because you're not having a lead flow problem? Maybe, not for everybody, but let's see what tennis balls we can drop for now and not even focus on. And let's just focus on creating a system for you to do sort of the bare minimum, but with like, what's the biggest bang for your buck? What's the biggest ROI? And then personally, it's what brings them joy? Is it spending time with friends or family? Is it getting exercise in? Or is exercise becoming more of a chore to them and they need to find like a more fun way? Is it playing, again, I'll use myself, like playing softball in your league with your friends instead of like going to the gym, right? Is it still getting that fitness in, but in a more fun way? It's figuring out a few things that you have to do for yourself. And you don't have to like commit to doing that all the time, but for right now, until you're healed, if you don't take care of yourself, like it's the same as everything. If you don't put your own oxygen mask on, you can't put anybody else's on. You have to put that on first. And so I usually have to try to convince them too that like this is actually better for your business and this is actually better for your patients or your clients. And usually I can walk them there and they'll see that. And then that usually helps them latch on to like the importance of it. And once they see that their own health and self-management is a glass ball, then it's a little bit easier to talk them into a strategy and a system to get them out of it.
It's so stressful though to be stressed about doing less when you think you have to do it all and do it more and do it better and do it faster than you already are. How do we combat
and that's where what's that? How do I combat
that thought? Yeah.
Where's that thought come from, Brett?
Yeah. Let's give them the Fathom notes. Fathom, send a summary of my fucked upness.
And that's where like the therapeutic part comes into play. A lot of coaching programs, and they're all well intended. I commend them for the effort. It's Alex Hormozzi's, I respect a lot of what the Hormozzis have done and a lot of their stuff, but they're all about like, just grind harder than the person next to you, just do this. And it's like, well, some people like, have maybe they have 3 kids and they're running a business and their partner, is deployed. Yeah. Oh, okay. You're not working hard enough in your business. Sure. Well, okay. Maybe they just have different priorities. And so, yeah, so it's a lot of times when it comes to those things, that's where it's the mindset stuff, which is, mindset's the pop culture term. It is a little bit of therapy. It's where do those beliefs come from? Instead of just, think positively. Just work harder. Nobody buys into that. And a lot of people get really turned off from that. If instead it's, well, let's figure out where that thought's coming from. Let's figure out why you believe that. And let's maybe disprove some of it. Let's factually disprove it. And then let's think about changing your mindset about it. So a lot of people go quick to, let's just change your mindset. Oh, you're just going to think this way. It's like, oh, okay. You just want to undo 30 years of how I've already been thinking. That neural pathway's grooved, baby. Like you can't just undo it, And so some people maybe can. Good for you. When they're 50, I would hate to be their therapist. That's all I have to say about that.
I think Hormozzi just came out too, actually, and said he had a video which kind of retracted some of his like mindset. Sounds like he might be getting burnt out finally. He's like, yeah, you leave this world like nobody cares about your business even when you're alive. It's like, yeah, maybe we're catching on to something here.
And like, it also depends on your goals. I've had a lot of people come to me that are like, some of their burnout comes simply from the coaching program they're in, that are like, you got to get $1 million, you got to raise your prices. And it's like, some people just wanted to, build a sports recovery place that helps people, and they don't want to price people out. And if it's a sustainable business model and it's working and they don't want to work more hours because they want to spend time with their kids, like if they wanted time back, now you can still build those big businesses and also get time back eventually, but it's not the same trajectory. Some of these people are in a place and they're, not to call anyone out, but there's a program that they literally put your revenue on your name tag. And it's like, revenue is a thing to strive for. It's a category of business, but it's not
shit with a lot of revenue still.
And that's my biggest thing. I'm like, first of all, I want to see all those people's profit margins. Then let's put them by profit margin, first of all. Second of all, I'm like, what if their goal is something different? Now you're just basically labeled them by something that isn't their goal, and now they feel like crap. So guess what? You just contributed to their burnout and contributed to their feeling like they need to do more and be something else. They come to me and they're like, oh, I thought I just like had to want $1 million business. I'm like, you don't have to want anything. Right? So that's where I think I just differentiate and struggle with sometimes the way people talk about mindset. And I was hesitant to even call myself a mindset coach for so long because I'm like, oh, I so disagree with it. And I go, okay, I can disagree with the way it's being taught and I can just do it differently. And that's, predominantly who I work with. It doesn't matter if you're a service-based industry. I'm working with people who are trying to change whatever their industry is and the way it's done. Between PTs who are like the healthcare system and you need more attention, bookkeepers who are like, people aren't educated on their finances. They're just being asked to just, do the books and they don't know where their money's going. Like, a financial advisor who's same thing. She's like, people are just unaware of where their money's going and they need to be educated. I don't just want to do it for them. And that's really the industry we're in. And that's what I try to do is I'm not just going to fix your problems. I want to help you learn a little bit how to solve them on yourself or solve them for yourself, and also educate you on like how and why, and then move on so we can rinse and repeat, because problems are going to keep happening in your business. And we just kind of keep taking these things and apply them back to, okay, now the new problems develop as you grow or as things happen, like systems break down and we have to rebuild. And then we go back to, okay, what's your mindset about this? Where's your leadership? Where's your communication? Let's rebuild the system or build a new system because you've grown, right? So it's really just a rinse and repeat. But, the way that I operate is for the world to, or my clients to, up front, there's a lot of learning. And then after that, it's like these coaching programs are also designed to be like, all right, it's like, $12,000 a year or, $1,200 a month. And so what does that look like for the year just to stay in and get like, a monthly call and maybe get someone to respond to you here and there. Whereas I'm like, all right, I already know your story. It's the same as, this is where I get the therapy model. I know your backstory. I know your business. I know what's important to you. I know how we can build a business that functions and operates that also is aligned with your values. Okay. Now, as problems come up, one, I've taught you a lot of how to self-solve. And you still can't see everything objectively. So sometimes you need a check-in. So now you can still have me and have access to me without needing to commit to $1,200 a month to work with me. And, from a business perspective, I don't know how this tangent got here, but this is just, I guess, what I'm telling people is that if you were to look at, they're like, oh, monthly recurring revenue is so important, so important. Yeah, in some industries. But I would bet that my lifetime value of a client far surpasses those people that do that. So I'd rather someone be with me for 6 years and use me sporadically and send me 5 people because of that, then great, I have this monthly recurring. When I do the math on that, I'm good. Like my continuity people will sustain at least my baseline. Cool. And they have access to me. And now I keep, growing with the big people up front. It's a lot more work up front. And again, I'm teaching them to self-solve. I'm teaching them about burnout. I'm teaching them how to, again, develop these skills for themselves, but still use me for support when needed.
Mm-hmm. And the big thing here too, we were talking about before, is for partners of someone that's with a business owner. I think I've been in serious relationships before where, and this was earlier on in business, but people outside of what we're doing, they don't understand sometimes all that's involved in getting a company off the ground. They don't understand the stress that it's all or nothing, that we're kind of all in on this, that this is our well-being, that it doesn't just stay at home. Our work doesn't just stay at work. It has to come home with us, or it doesn't get done. It doesn't get thought about. So what things would you have for someone that's, with an entrepreneur? Like what are things they need to know or expect, and how to be supportive? Well,
it's interesting because I have my thoughts and you have your thoughts. And so it's really about teaching that business owner to communicate their expectations, because it's different for everyone. Some people, sure, there are some things that they should know and be aware of, like the fact that everything you just said, and that, they live and die by how, like, their reputation, it's the pressure might seem false to you, but it's real. The upside, so they only see that we're not making money yet, so why are you working so hard? And it's like, yeah, well, sit back and relax, honey, because in 3 years, they can't see that because they don't understand. Also that they want to help, right? So you have a conversation about a problem at work and they try to give you a solution. You're like, dude, that was 3 years ago. No, just don't. But again, that all comes down to in your relationship, having a conversation that's like, hey, I'm just venting right now. Or, hey, the next 3 months is going to look like this. Let me know if you can't do that. Let me know if what you need from me, and I'll see if I can fit it in. Right? It's really setting expectations and being able to communicate, and sure, being flexible, figuring out where you can be flexible, being like, if you need help, this is what I need you to do. I need you to give me 3 weeks notice, right? And of course there's one-off cases, and that's going to happen. And as a business owner, you have to also be flexible to that, because it's just like in your business. And then it's also figuring out what stage of business are you at, and do you still need to be on this grind, or do you need someone to come in and point out that, oh, okay, you've been in business 3 years. If you don't answer that client's message in 2 hours or less, they're still going to be your client tomorrow. You're actually at a place of business where you shouldn't be so obsessed with that, right? You're doing a disservice to your clients if you are, letting them dictate your time and schedule at that point, right? So, I guess the answer is really working with the person that, that's the other thing about therapy is it's all about okay, we go to therapy to figure out, to deal with all the problems of the people in our lives who won't go to therapy. People think it's going in to be like, yeah, my mom caused all my issues. My dad caused all my issues. It's like, yes, and what are you going to do about it? How are you going to make this work for you? Because you can't change them. And, you can try to influence. But so that's kind of it, is as a partner, it's one, yeah, sure, being aware, but two, as the person who's going to date those people. And maybe they go into it after you've been married for a while. And that changes things. It's okay. Well, this is a different version of me. Are we going to grow together? Are you in this with me? People have certain things where they have to make those decisions together, and that's up to you. And I've worked with partners in business. I've worked with people who, are shared partners. I've worked with people who just have someone that works for them technically, right? Again, it's all about communication, setting expectations, and where you turn work on and off.
Buckle the fuck up.
Yeah, and also knowing, right? It's as that person understanding that, what they're getting into is you're either along for the ride or you're not. It's honestly, and as you know, my own situation, this is a really good comparison. It's like, having kids. Are you along for the ride or not? You either choose to have kids together, right? And you commit to, and I have my beliefs about how people should parent and raise their kids and, make sacrifices for them. And it's like, are you on this ride or are you not? And it's the same for this. It's like, you're either supporting these challenges and you're in it with me, or you're fighting your friction. Which do you want to be?
Speaking of that, people that are in business together, is that your dog or my dog barking?
Sorry, I think it was mine.
That's fine. They sound similar. People that are in business with their partners, I think that's insane. I couldn't do that. But you've worked with it. You've seen it.
Yeah.
What are the special traits you think people need to have in order to, or certain things they need to do and practice so that they can have a healthy working relationship and, romantic relationship outside of work?
And this really started too for me. I've done it with business owners and have for a few years now, but it started when I was working with the military, and I saw people who were married but maybe had either a hierarchy or equivalent in the military. And a tactic I learned from them through working with them was, my first answer is the obvious. If you haven't learned by now, my answer is going to be communication.
We know
but
that.
People don't know what that looks like. Yeah. And so with that, one thing that then it's compartmentalization. Yeah. With the military, one thing that they would do is if they're, at home, they're like, Lieutenant DiCredico and Lieutenant DiCredico, because obviously if I got married, they would take my last name. And so, at work, it's Lieutenant DiCredico, and then we get home and it's Lauren. And if I do need to have a business conversation with you or a work conversation with you, it's, hey, Lieutenant DiCredico, let's get in work mode. Let's get professional for a second. We can't be emotional here, right? And that's a telltale sign. And that's a way to communicate that, right? Or set an expectation, but you have to set that early, right? So that's a good one. Or with PTs, I'll say, call them doctor, even though a lot of you guys don't, but Dr. Brett at home, if you've got to talk business, hey, Dr. Brett, I'm not talking to my husband right now. I'm talking to my business partner, or I'm talking to my manager or leader. So communication, expectation setting, and then really, just like we have one-on-ones in as, we've talked about structured one-on-ones and the intention of those, relationships really should have those too. You should be checking in once a month and being like, hey, is there anything I'm doing that's bothering you? Is there anything you need from me? And it doesn't mean you're going to answer that or for sure do that. It just means, okay, what's the compromise? Hey, here's why I can't do that right now. What can you flex with, right? Again, it just boils down to like having a place to communicate, a safe space to communicate. Of course, as far as values go, like having shared values is important. Acting more like a team, like it's we versus me. Remembering it's you guys versus the problem. It's not me versus you. That's a big, mindset shift as you go into problems and arguing and fighting. Is it's like, oh, wait, Brett, let's remember for a second that we're both trying to just get to a solution here. Right? We might be mad at each other. We might have emotions involved. So those are some things that I usually help them, guide and see. And then, giving the communication tools and allowing safe space, actually listening, not listening to respond. There's a lot of things that obviously would develop over time, but yeah, it's not for everyone. There's also some people that it's like, we know we're not compatible to do this, and that's okay. And this is how we work outside of that.
Mm-hmm. I had Krista Scott Dixon on a while ago, and she talked about how because of the way kids in like the 70s or 80s were raised, they're very good at compartmentalizing their emotions and feelings, which has its positives and negatives. Where like our Gen Z people don't seem to compartmentalize as well. Feelings
and then we're kind of in the middle.
And we're in the middle.
Yeah.
So just curious, do you think there'll be less like lovers in business together later on in life because of just like generational differences?
That's hard to predict.
Yeah.
I don't know that I would say it would impact like less in business. It's an interesting question. My thoughts on it are, I like to think about, I use the term self-regulation. And so it's really essentially, how do I compartmentalize? Like in the moment, I can't feel this feeling. I can't get frustrated or lash out, but I can still have that feeling. Mm-hmm. It's just regulating it and going, I can't act on it right now. And, being professional, doing what you have to do. Maybe it's like showing it, but not doing it or acting out in a way or acting upon that or acting, a behavior that's because of it and blaming your emotion. That's where I hope to see it go, is people just learn like, you can have emotions, which that's what their generation was like, no emotions, ugly, we don't do that. And now they all, drink, and that's how they let their emotions out. And then, it's ugly, or they just hide it or whatever. But then there's the other spectrum of like, they've gone too far and, oh, everything's about your feelings. It's okay. It's like, okay, the reality is, like everything, it's somewhere in between. And you want people to recognize it's okay to you can be upset about this and still do it. You don't have to like it, and you can voice your concern in a respectful way, but the reality is we still need to get here. So are you on board or not? When it's like leader to employee or something, or when it comes to relationships, it's like there's a space to do it. And with relationships and if you're a partnership and a business partnership, there are going to be times where it's blurred. There are times in life where it's like you can't be perfect in all these skills and strategies. The biggest key to healthy relationships, and all I'm talking about here is all relationships. So your business relationships, your employees, but of course, most people are thinking about it, and that's where you're really your true self and let yourself go, is your intimate relationship or your family. It's not about the fight, it's about the recovery. So you can fight as much as you want, obviously preferably have healthy fights and, be problem solving, right? Don't say things you can't come back from, but it happens. But it's, can you come back and apologize? Can you recover together? Can you recognize your own faults in that situation? Because whenever there's a fight, both people are to blame, for the most part. So it's like, even if somebody else maybe is the reason it started, then you jumped on the ship and you rode it with them. And so you also said things. So really the strongest thing is like, how do you recover? And actually, if you can recover from tough things, that builds connection far more than any other thing in the world in relationships. Like enjoying the same hobbies, it doesn't matter. If you can truly recover together, that's where, trust is built and strength in relationships.
It certainly is. The last thing I wanted to go through here is stress tolerance of business owners. So I guess there's two pieces of this. Are most, I know this is true for me, I grew up in a stressful environment, which made me basically addicted to stress. Is that the case for most people that are high achieving business owners, entrepreneurs?
Yes and no. There's a lot of that. There's also a lot of people who, like in your, let me make sure I'm correct here. You're referring to, I grew up in a high stress environment, meaning like I had a lot of traumatic things happening, not like I was stressed all the time, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. So there are people who had what is considered a normal upbringing, parents together, no trauma, had money, not like whatever, but like the all-American family, right? Obviously everybody still has their problems and issues, and they'll say this, they'll say, like I had a normal life, and it's like, one, that doesn't dismiss that they still have problems. So we talk about that, but two, that they earned the addiction to stress in a different way. And maybe it's that the parents were positive intention, but they did place value on high grades and things like that. Now, maybe they didn't do so much as to, punish them severely for a bad grade, but the expectation was there, and it was just assumed you get good grades and you work hard, and like those they were trying to instill those values, but it was outcome based is how they measured it. And that's just the way school is designed. Unfortunately, it's just the way of the world. It sort of trains that into people. So if you are a high achiever, that means you start at an early age learning about A's equals success. And then when you're done with school, what's left? You need to find a way to measure your success. So you kind of go in and look for more and more and more of those things. So that's, whether it's a business owner, it might be revenue, it might be, growth, it might be, followers or whatever. So I would say that, yes, there's like some sort of stress addiction. In some cases, it's a healthy stress addiction that is manageable and we can easily overcome or change. In others, it's a direct tie to trauma. And we just have to work a little harder to tease that out. And, what that looks like is a little different for everyone.
Mm-hmm. And then do you think, though, that business owners, entrepreneurs typically have a higher threshold to cope with stress than other people?
Yes.
Why?
It's probably the only answer that I don't have it depends too. Well, for the same reason, whatever their makeup is, whether it was environmental, genetic, or combination, they had to overcome it to achieve. Mm-hmm. And so they learned that. They learned that I'm not going to, maybe I had, in my case, it was kind of a combination of some traumatic stuff, but some normal upbringing and raised well. And I kind of have a weird blend of that. And it's like, you have, and I was fortunate enough to play multiple sports, and, my parents put me in extra things, and that's where I had that normal stuff. But it was like, you went from school in middle school, and then you played, maybe softball for 2 hours, and then you went to basketball for 2 hours, and it's 9 o'clock. Like, your homework has to get done. And I remember the time that I, just gave up on a reading project. My mom was like, you know what, you're going to turn it in like this, and you're going to learn that failure is not an option, because you're going to learn how it feels. And I could still think about how much I cried getting an F on that paper. Like, I'm in like 6th grade. It was like reading class. I don't know if you remember, and I'm like, I wasn't good at reading. It was just, I wasn't, whatever. And I just didn't want to do it. I still think about that as I'm like, if you don't do this, this is the outcome, and you have no one to blame but yourself. Right? So in some cases what?
We had reading tests. Me and Lauren went to high school together, by the way. Yeah,
it was, remember the lady with the white short hair, and it was like reading class?
Mrs. E?
No, not Mrs. E. I'll think about it. We'll have to talk.
We'll discuss after.
It was like some class. Hopefully someone from Tewksbury can, listen to this and give us the answer. But it was just like for 5th and 6th and 7th grade or something. And it was like 1 hour. It wasn't like SSR, but it was like a reading teacher or creator. I don't know. And anyways, it was, I wasn't very good. This is, again, we can talk about growth mindset and all that. That's where I'm going with this. But now I don't even remember what you asked me, but stress, addiction,
high tolerance.
High tolerance. Yeah. So, anyway, the point being that, like, then what did I learn from that? And this is many business, I'm just using myself so I don't, share everybody else's personal stuff that they've told me. But, they learned, okay, I have to, in order to achieve, I have to do this. So these people aren't like starting businesses that are low achievers. In that case, it's school. Not everybody at school. I have people business owners who haven't graduated, college, and but they learned it in some other way. So it's basically just, at an early age, whether it's traumatic experiences or non-traumatic experiences, or a lot of business owners are, athletes, and you just have to learn that. That's a skill that you develop through exposure. And it's one of those skills that if your parents coddled you, or if you don't force your kid to go through those experiences, they won't learn those skills. So these people were taught it, whether it was intentional from the parents or traumatic experiences through their life. They've built that stress tolerance because somewhere along the way they had no other way. That's why they got this far. And so, there's people out there that have those same experiences that aren't as successful. And maybe we choose business ownership because, we've learned independence and things like that. And so it's kind of designed for people like that. But there's certainly people that come to me that I'm like, I don't say this, but they're not cut out to be a business owner. And that's because of that stress tolerance or the ability to push through when things get hard. And there's certainly an aspect of resilience that's ingrained. And then there's some that can still be taught.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Anything else you wanted to close with?
Not so much. What about for you? Is there anything like from our work together that maybe I haven't made explicit or you found was like impactful that you'd want people to know?
Explicit. Yeah, you. What did you just say on our session an hour ago? You called me out on something.
I don't remember.
My jabs. My passive-aggressive jabs. How that happened with my father, too. So Lauren's very fucking explicit. She'll call you on your shit. I've learned that, which is good.
I do it with love.
I think,
and only to people who can handle it.
I think the big things for me have been realizing, I think one big thing is there is a huge difference between going to traditional therapy and working with you. I went to a therapist and it was, I told you this, like I did get benefit from it, but at the end of the day, it brought up a lot of things and it was kind of like going to the doctors and being told you're fat by a PCP and then just saying like, get less fat. It's like, what do I do with that? How do I make that happen? Or when you go to therapy, it's like, you have all this trauma. How do you feel about it? It's like, bad? I don't know. What do I do with this now? And you're just left. It probably makes some people worse. Right? And there's no plan. We're working with you. There was an accountability plan. It's like, hey, I feel burnt out and I can't get up in the morning. What do I do? It's like, you're going to text me every morning at 7 a.m. that your feet are on the floor. A picture of your feet on the floor. We did that for, a couple months. But I think that, and then just realizing how much, like, I've always known communication was important, and the more I've been in practice and business, the more important it's become. And then you just realize so much more working with you of how important bringing up this conversation is from this perspective, from this person's mindset, how to approach it, what to say, what not to say. There's a ton there. And then just, realizing really like how much our upbringing, what we've gone through, what we think, how that affects our business, our employees, our success, and really changing that around, and trying to rewire some of those pathways. Even though it's tough, we don't always want to, we can be hard set on some things. I think those are the biggest things for me that have changed the way I look at life and business together.
Yeah, I like that. It's a good summary. Yeah, I've had a few people say like they've fired their therapists after working with me, and I feel bad for that. I'm like, they were a portion of how we got here, but it's for the same reasons. More like, okay, well, like you just get there faster, or you give me something to do with it. There's things that they could also help you get to, like not to diminish the whole, I still have one, but she does help me business too. She's also a private practice owner, so she can see that stuff. But anyway, I think we need a lot of different people in our support network from all different walks of life and all different angles. And, when I think about how I approach business, it's like, really, I can solve whatever your problems are. And then when we hit a point where it's like, the root cause really is something like SEO optimization. Okay, like it turns out you are having a lead gen problem and it is SEO. Now you should outsource, right? Now go see an expert. Now go see like a specialist, right? With you, it's like the way I think about, just kind of, I guess, to wrap up how I think about people be like, who do you help or what do you specifically solve? That'd be like someone coming to you, Brett, and being like, what body part do you work with? It's like, the whole body. What are you talking about? Well, can you do surgery? Well, no, but like, we don't know if you need surgery. Like, let's just get you in and see. And, they're like, well, I have a foot problem. I should probably see a podiatrist. And it's like, well, why don't we come see if like maybe your hip's causing your foot problem? I don't know PT, but something along those lines. And it's like, you go in there and you solve and you kind of pull out and go like, well, here's what's really causing the problem. Okay. Yeah. It does turn out that you need to go see a specialist. Okay, we've determined that. But that case is probably a lot less frequent than the people that are just getting in their own way, right? And in my case it's like, it depends what you're, like, come in with your problem, I'll figure out, and I'm just a problem solver. I'll help you uncover and figure out how to solve it. And then in some cases, you might need a specialist. You might need a marketing guru. You might need one of those things. But a lot of things, we really just got to pull back and get out of our own way.
Absolutely. Well, Lauren, where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Well, for sure, and confident this time, Lauren DiCredico is my business Instagram, and website's going to be up probably by the time this is out, laurendicredico.com.
Cool. We've had lots of business name changes over the years. We
have, and I think it's if you're not afraid to fail in public, then you shouldn't be in business. Yeah. I've thought through it quite a bit, and each change has been like, I'd rather fail now with my small following, and as I grow now, it's going to be what it's meant to be. And because you got to think about all that stuff when you think about branding and all that. And I'm proud to be like, I've adjusted, I've changed, and I'm so confident now in the path I'm going. So so that's where you'll find me from now on. And Lauren DiCredico, DiCredico, because nobody can spell it. That's where you'll find me.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks, Brett.
84% of you that listen to this podcast frequently do not hit the follow button. If you've enjoyed any of these episodes, could you do us a favor and hit the follow button, leave a rating, and maybe leave us a review? It helps this channel more than you know, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests get. If you'd like to know more about training in person or online with Brett's Gym, Architect Fitness, please follow us on social at ARKITECT Fitness on Instagram, or visit ARKITECTFitness.com. Or if you want to rehab with barbell therapy online or in person, check out @barbell.therapy or visit barbelltherapyandperformance.com. Thank you for taking the time to listen.